Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, they're all part of the new series on Netflix called Quarterback. I am midway through the series and I absolutely love it. I am so excited to welcome in Tim Rumpff, the director of Quarterback. He also works with NFL Films. And Tim, you got to follow Kirk Cousins. I covered him closely here in Washington. So I'm excited to actually see everyone else fall in love with him, because I saw this side of him, but I don't think a lot of other people did, and people always poke fun at the guy. But I think you could make the argument, Tim, he's the breakout star of the show.
Yeah, I mean, I've been blown away by everyone's feedback about the footage of Kirk. And I think it really goes back to him being so willing to buy into the project and just being an open book with us. I mean, the things he allowed us to show are things that we've never captured before at NFL Films. So it was a really amazing process, and I just love hearing the exact feedback that you just said.
Well, I have more positive feedback for you, Tim. I started it this week. I'm obsessed. I thought Patrick Mahomes was going to be my favorite to watch, but I also love Kirk and his whole aura that he brings to the show. How did the overall idea and concept for Quarterbacks come about?
Sure. Yeah. So at NFL Films, we've always wanted to work with Netflix on some kind of project, and we knew it had to be something big like this. So we're kind of waiting for the right project to bring to them. And we've also had a good partnership with Omaha Productions, Peyton Manning's production company. We've done many projects with them. So in discussions with them, we had this idea, and Peyton had this idea about following quarterbacks and kind of just showing how hard it is to play the position. Because I think it's something that Peyton would have always liked to do during his career, but never really had the chance to. So when we were throwing this idea around, it was like, okay, this is it. We need to bring this to Netflix. And I think it was the perfect partnership for it.
So congratulations, by the way, on all the success of the show, already renewed for a second season. So I can't wait to see which 3 quarterbacks sign up. How hard was it to get 3 guys to sign off on this and be like, all right, I'm going to be mic'd up for every game. Plus,
Right.
We get behind the scenes family stuff that we really never get to see.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big challenge going in from day one, because at NFL Films, we've never mic'd up a player or a quarterback, for all 17 weeks. So to not only do 1, but do 3, that certainly was a daunting task to start the season. But it kind of unfolded with Peyton have a conversation with Patrick Mahomes. Once Mahomes was on board, then kind of everything fell in place. It was like, all right, we got, the guy that we want to lead this series, the guy that has won a Super Bowl previously, is trying to make his way back. What are different kind of stories we can tell that we think the viewers would be interesting? All right, how about a guy that, has had a lot of success, just hasn't gotten over that playoff hump? So that's kind of where Kirk came in. And then a very different story, someone that, is trying to prove that he still deserves to be a starting quarterback. And I think it was great that we went with that strategy from day one, just because I think as the 8 episodes play out, you get 3 very different stories and 3 very different guys in different stages of their career.
What was the buy-in like from these players? I know you said that Kirk Cousins, was really just a part of it from the beginning, but as the season went on, I mean, it was week 17. Were they getting tired of being mic'd up and having you guys in their houses, or was it just they were on board throughout the entire season for anything that you guys wanted to do?
Yeah, fortunately for us, I think they knew what they kind of signed up for from the beginning, and all 3 guys were in a similar place off the field, just in their family lives, that saw value in doing this show long term. We had 2 kids that were born during the course of this series, and then obviously Kirk has 2 sons himself. So in talking to these guys, a big reason that they wanted to do it was to be able to show their kids when they're older just everything they put into it to playing the position of quarterback. Because I mean, it's one thing to tell people, or it's one thing to see your footage of mic'd up, the little, couple minute segments that are online or on shows. But it's really different when you live with someone for 6 months and tell their story over an 8-episode arc. And I think Kirk says it in the piece that, he's still playing right now. He wants to continue to play until his boys are a little bit older to really appreciate it. So I think that helped us carry their involvement throughout and really the buy-in. And I think what it came down to was really, if they ever had any cold feet or they were getting tired of it, when you get to the playoff game, with Kirk, you don't get to go home with him afterwards, or big moments like that, or Patrick Mahomes be with him the day he's winning the MVP award. It's just, again, going back to things we have never been able to capture at NFL Films, and it just took this series to a whole nother level.
One thing that stood out to me really was the mental side of the game, and you show both or all of the quarterbacks, specifically Kirk. He records himself saying the plays and listens to them in his ear over and over. And then Marcus Mariota's wife, she kind of quizzes him and works with him each week. A lot of people, even I have a neighbor across the street. She doesn't even really know anything about sports. She's got 3 kids. She's texting me, I love Kirk Cousins. Another friend is like, I hope he wins a Super Bowl. Going back to the mental side, do you think this whole series will help Kirk? Because it seems like people don't give him a fair shake, and maybe now that people are really getting behind him and rooting for him, will this help him, or is he better in more of the underdog role?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I mean, that was part of my goal going into this. As a producer or director, you try not to get too attached to the subject that you're covering. But I think when you spend 6 months with someone and get to know not only him, but his wife and his kids, you can't help but get a little attached to him. So that was really one of my goals coming out of it. Was like, I hope people get more of appreciation for him. I think a lot of people understand, hey, he's this really nice guy. He's this wholesome guy. But really appreciate him as a full individual and on the football aspect too. And like you mentioned, him doing the play calls in the car, like I had no idea that he did things like that, or he did the brain training and all these, or met with a psychologist every single Wednesday. It's these little insights that you don't know about these guys until you just spend the time with them. And credit to him, he opened up his life to allow us to do that.
So being behind the scenes and spending this amount of time from him, what does the day-to-day look like for you guys as producer, director, your whole crew? How big is your crew? Are you with them every single day, or are there scheduled times? Just give us some details behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a team effort. So there's, a showrunner that kind of oversees everything back here at NFL Films in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. He's got a big cork board in his office with little index cards, which we have a plan from day one, but those index cards are constantly shifting as certain things happen. Like we could have never anticipated having, that Vikings-Bills game that we had that ends up being the best game of the season, or, oh, hey, why don't we throw in the greatest comeback in NFL history? Like, why not? So that was awesome. And then, of course, one of our guys goes all the way to the Super Bowl. So you're constantly shifting things around, so that you got to constantly stay flexible. In the field, we have 3 directors. So obviously myself was with Kirk, and then 2 other individuals that were with Marcus and Patrick, and then a slew of, camera operators and audio engineers that are in each city. So we're able to operate a drop of a hat. So, if Patrick Mahomes say, hey, I'm having my birthday party in 3 hours and you guys can come, we were able to do that. So yeah, I'd say probably on average, we were with them weekly. Certainly not 24/7, but we had them mic'd up every single week. Obviously they were mic'd up for every single game. And then anytime we had an opportunity, we were trying to capture their week to week process.
Speaking of that, the moment where Patrick Mahomes gets injured and Andy Reid's like, we're taking you out of the game, and he's like, heck no. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, what does this mean for the Chiefs Super Bowl hopes? Are you sitting there like, this is TV gold? Like, we never could have planned anything like this. Like, what is that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm watching that on TV just like everybody else, but I'm texting the director who's with Patrick, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Is he okay? Because I had a similar experience just with Kirk on an obviously much smaller scale when he took the hit against Washington and he's laying on the ground and I can hear his mic and just hear groaning. And I'm like, oh no, is this an ACL? And obviously, like I was saying, you get attached to these guys, so you're rooting for them. But yeah, I mean, watching that Chiefs game, we didn't know what was going to happen. Okay, is his story going to end with his season ends that he just can't come back in this game, and then it's just this downer of a season at the end? But to watch him come back out and win that game, yeah, I think all of us that were working on the show had a text chain going on and be like, I think we have something special here.
Tim, you've also done work on Hard Knocks, and that was kind of the original for shows like this. And now you obviously have Quarterback. There's Drive to Survive out there, Full Swing, all of those sports type of shows. What do you see the future kind of content evolution being of shows like this going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has a desire for access-driven shows, and hats off to Netflix because they kind of seem to be really cornering the market and really doing a good job of putting a variety of different series. So, I know at NFL Films, we're going to keep trying to do the same thing and, hopefully more quarterback seasons for years to come as well.
I have to ask, did it ever come up, the whole narrative with Kirk? He's not a primetime guy, as we all know. Did you ever talk to him about that? Because we're a betting show, and we came to the conclusion last year, maybe Kirk's a morning guy, and he just needs to be playing in London. But all jokes aside, did that ever come up? Because I'm so curious, with him working with the psychologist, if we're going to see him do a little better in primetime this season.
Yeah, so I can't remember exactly what episode it is. I want to say it was 5 or something. It was leading into the Patriots game. So I knew that was a narrative that was kind of following. And, when you're doing a documentary like this, you have to ask uncomfortable questions. We're trying to tell the true story of these guys' careers and also their year in the season. And of course, you hear all of that noise. And he tries to say he doesn't hear any of it, which I'm sure he tries to avoid, but you can't help but walking past a TV and hearing something, or turning on the radio or a podcast and hearing people talk about it. So I asked him that. He addressed it, and I liked his answer. He said, I hear it all, but at the same time, in my memory room, I have a bunch of balls from Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, so I have to do okay. But the truth is, when you play those primetime games, you end up playing really good teams, so it's going to be more difficult to win. So, he's certainly aware of it, but I think maybe he would push back on it a little bit.
There's so many good moments in the show, but I'm sure based on the amount of time that you spend with these players and the amount of footage that you have, that there's quite a few scenes or clips that didn't make it into any episode. Are there any that stand out to you that you wish, maybe the audience would have been able to see?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to do the math the other day. So we had these guys obviously mic'd up for 17 games, which is, obviously 3 hours of footage right there, weekly practices themselves, 3 hours. So there's a ton of stuff that didn't make the show. And as a football junkie, just little intricacies of practice, like his interactions with Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell and stuff like that, is interesting to me, and obviously in the games as well. But it's just, when you have 8 episodes and 3 quarterbacks with that same amount of footage as well, everything just doesn't make it. But I will say, there's nothing that really jumps out at me. The best stuff that we saw in our Avids editing it definitely made the show.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I have to ask you, because it is a very big day here in Washington. I never thought I would see the day that Dan Snyder is no longer the owner. I assume you're a Washington fan. I know you're a Terp. You live in the DMV, or you're from here. So tell me what this means to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my Dexter Manley jersey right behind me. I did a football life with him. So, yeah, I grew up in Gaithersburg, Maryland. So it's certainly a big day as a Commanders fan, and I'm looking forward to what can hold and what comes up in the future, what the future can hold for us. Certainly, it seems like a turning page moment in our history, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
Tim,
it should
about
be
a
good
minute
for the team.
Yeah, minute left. Erin, just one last question for Tim here. Hard Knocks. The Jets are on Hard Knocks this year. They don't necessarily want to be on Hard Knocks. I know you're not involved in this season, but how does that crew get the most out of this Jets team this year?
Sure. So I've directed 3 seasons of Hard Knocks, and it is similar, whether, teams can always have a varying level of interest in doing it. But what it comes down to is establishing relationships and establishing that trust between the crew and the players and the team and all that. And that just comes in time. So, I have all the confidence in the world in the crew that's going to be out there. And the director, Shannon Furman, has done it for many years. And she's great at it. So I know once they get out there, they establish that relationship with the coaching staff, the players, and ownership. And I'm positive it's going to be a fantastic season.